What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we are back with our third and final reveal that the lovely folks at Transformers TCG Towers have been kind enough to give us from War for Cybertron Siege 2. Though, if they need anyone else to reveal any more cards, I am here, I am willing, just putting that out there. It is Raider Rumble. And it is another one of these Spy Patrol cards, by my count, the fourth one that we have seen so far. Now, if we start off with the basics, we have a 6-star character, which is on the high end for Spy Patrol, as we'll see in a moment. But the stats are really good, mostly. If we start off in bot mode, attack of 4 on a 6 cost is great. Health of 11 on a 6 cost is pretty gosh darn good. Defense of 0 is utterly terrible. Boo. If we flick into alt mode, we still have the same health of 11, we still have the same defense of 0, but then we gain an attack of 0 as well. Stats aren't good in alt mode. In bot mode, like it. Decent attacker. Little bit of staying power. In alt mode, stats are bad. But if we have a little bit of a look at the skills, I'm kind of a fan. Starting off in bot mode, it's got a tap skill, return an upgrade on a character to its owner's hand. Now remember, unlike your traditional Micromasters, though these are still small cards, when Spy Patrols have their tap skills, you do not have to discard a card from your hand in order to use it. Yes, you have to tap it. Yes, that means it can't attack blah 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 unless you untap it, more on that in a moment. But it means you don't have to lose a card from your hand. Now, returning an upgrade from your opponent's character to their hand, it's alright. It's not phenomenal, it's not great, it's alright. It's low. By which I mean you're only getting rid of one upgrade on one character. This isn't something like Disarm, where you can grab all of the upgrades on a particular character and whack them back in your opponent's hand. And similarly, we have got Inferno, which, well, when you flip it into alt mode, does the exact same thing. But having said that, Inferno's not cheap. It's a 12 cost. It's twice the cost. And incidentally, doesn't have any more health, although it does have better other stats. So you know what? I'm cool with this. And the question really is, what are you going to get rid of? Now, if you're about to attack with another character, but there's a force field which is going to stop you taking a KO, you tap Raider Rumble, get rid of the force field, and attack. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the best use for it. This is a great use. Force field stops you taking KOs. Force field guarantees that you can only take 4 damage from an attack. That's not ideal. And sure, there's plenty of stuff out there like Bashing Shield that can remove a force field. Just so long as you've got Bashing Shield at the time. Now, the reason Bashing Shield is so popular, it's got a green icon, so if you flip it while attacking or defending, you can swap a card in your hand for it at the end of the battle. But there's no mucking about here. Even if you start in alt mode, which of course you do, and you never get out of alt mode, oh, it's your turn. Flip to bot mode. Tap. Done. That's what I love about Raider Rumble. You always have an answer here to force field. And that's pretty awesome. Now, there are some others. One that we don't see a huge amount of play for, although I think that's largely because planes themselves aren't really central to the metagame yet. But Crash Landing. Crash Landing's a lovely card that you attach to a plane, and when that plane gets KO'd, you do damage equal to its attack to a tapped enemy. So similarly, if you're playing against a plane deck and they've got a Crash Landing attached, tap Rumble, get rid of the Crash Landing, you're off. Of course, I'm slow rolling you a little bit here because Battle Masters are a thing. And Battle Masters are great. I mean, Private Lionizer is probably the best one. Certainly the most aggressive and the one that's garnered the most discussion. Private Lionizer, when it gets KO, turns into RS Fire Steel Saber, which when attached to a character gives them bold 4. It's phenomenal. So tap Rumble, get rid of it. And the great thing is that when you get rid of a Battle Master, it goes to your opponent's KO area. And sure, they can use Quartermaster to recover it, but they've got to find Quartermaster. They've got to get it into their hand. And then it's still their action for the turn. And you can still just tap Raider Rumble again. I love this against Force Field, but I love it against Battle Masters. Because they're kind of a one-shot thing. Unless you can recover them with Quartermaster, they are just a one-shot deal. You attach them, they sit there until either the character is KO'd or the upgrade is removed. Battle Master goes to the KO area and saves some Quartermaster shenanigans. They're gone. Well, here they're just gone. You just get rid of them. And especially if your opponent does that thing where they use Peace Through Tyranny to get a KO on a Battle Master, and then also get an extra turn, and then you just use Raider Rumble to get rid of it, that's kind of hilarious. They've still had the extra turn, but it's still kind of funny. I love this tap skill. Yes, it's only one upgrade on one character, but it's not a card you have to draw into. It's a tap skill on a 6-star character. I love it. Now, in alt mode, it's got a nice skill, but there's a giant caveat. It's got Revenge. You do 2 damage to an enemy, and the Revenge skill comes in when the character is KO'd. Now, doing 2 damage when a character is KO'd, beautiful. The problem is, that's only in alt mode. And the reality is that unless your opponent takes a really quick KO on Raider Rumble, you're probably not going to be in alt mode very much. Now, you might flick back to alt mode because you see a KO coming. And this is just a free plasma burst because it is 2 damage to an enemy, so you get a free choice. But you don't want to be in alt mode. At the beginning of the game, you're forced to be. But after that, I mean, in bot mode, you've got the tap skill, and you're a melee character, and you've got 4 attack. The only benefit of being in alt mode is that Revenge skill. So you are in an awkward situation where you've got a really nice skill when you get KO'd in alt mode, but how often are you realistically going to be in alt mode? Maybe a lot, but I rather think you probably won't. Now, I can see this seeing a bit of play for the tap skill, but it is still 6 cards. This really does fit nicely, most of all, into a Soundwave deck. We were waiting a long time for Soundwave. It's only fair that when we do get Soundwave, we then get a bunch of Spy Patrol to use with them. And Major Soundwave is clearly great. In alt mode, each of your Spy Patrol has +1 defense. So actually here you turn into a 4 attack, 1 defense, which is pretty good for a 6 cost. And then in bot mode, when you attack, you untap each of your Spy Patrols. So what you can do here is tap Rumble to get rid of a really annoying upgrade, attack with Major Soundwave to take a key KO, and then you untap Rumble anyway, ready to use next turn. That sounds like a fun little sequence. Clearly Soundwave loves his Spy Patrol, but the real question is this better than the alternatives? And we have 3 alternatives. Now, there is no way to play 3 of them in a deck with Soundwave. The 2 cheapest are the ones that we got in Wave 3, and you're talking about Laserbeak, who is a 5 cost, and you're talking about Ravage, which is a 5 cost. They're the 2 cheapest. You add up at 21, there is no 4 cost. If we ever get a 4 cost Spy Patrol, that will be huge, because then it does open up a 4-wide Soundwave Spy Patrol deck, but we haven't got that yet. Now, being a 6 cost, you are the joint most expensive with Ratbat, so let's have a look and see which ones we'd rather play. Laserbeak has slightly better defense, but the attack isn't as good, the health isn't as high. Now, you do draw a card and scrap a card from your hand when you flip into alt mode, which is very nice draw power, but by the same token, you might not survive long enough, and that's 2 flips to get there. Having said that, in bot mode, you have both PS2 and a tap skill that lets you play a secret action in addition to your regular action. I do like Laserbeak a lot as a 5 cost. It's a very efficient card. Raider Ravage, it's got nice defense in alt mode, but other than that, the stats are fairly uninspiring. You do have a tap skill that does a damage to an enemy, 2 if they've got a defense of 4 or higher. But that's 2 turns worth of tap skills to do essentially what Rumble can do when it gets KO'd. Though, of course, with the giant caveat that you might not be in ult mode when you get KO'd. And then you've got Raider Ratbat, whose stats are fine, but they're still not really as good as Rumble, though the 2 defense in ult mode does make me happy. And it's got in ult mode a revenge skill, where you choose a battle icon colour, look at your opponent's hand and scrap a card from it that has a battle icon of that colour. It's fine as a little bit of hand disruption, and you do have a good defense in ult mode, but it's kind of underwhelming. And then in bot mode, you've got a tap skill where you reveal the top card of your deck, repair 1 damage from each of your characters for each different colour among that card's battle icons. Now, to be fair, if you can find yourself something like a fuel cache there, and be healing 3 damage from all of your characters, that is clearly phenomenal, but by the same token, that is far from guaranteed. The other thing to point out here is that Rumble is a melee character, and we like melee because it opens up Power Sword for bold shenanigans and body armor for tough shenanigans, which is cool. But the problem is that if we have a little bit of a look at Soundwave, he's a specialist. Okay. And then I really like Laserbeak, but Laserbeak is ranged. Do I really want a specialist, a ranged, and a melee on my team? So I could play it with Ravage, who's a melee, but I don't like Ravage as much. Or I could leave this and just play Ratbat and Laserbeak, who are both ranged, but I don't like them quite so much. So you do end up in an awkward situation. I like Rumble. Rumble is probably my favourite of the Spy Patrol so far, but I'd want to play it with Laserbeak, and then you really do not have traits that go around your team very nicely. So maybe you play it with Ravage, who's a melee character and also does cheeky damage, but I'd much rather have Laserbeak than I would have Ravage. So you end up with some awkward situations. Either way, I like Rumble, and it is nice to have another Spy Patrol, and it's really cool to have extra options. Now we've got 4, and we can only play 2. If nothing else, even if you don't agree with me about how good Rumble is, it's kind of lovely that we've got a 4th Spy Patrol. And I would very much like to know what you think about this Spy Patrol, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk about games like Transformers, but any others that take our fancy. And do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio if you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.